The work that lawyers do, particularly in litigation, is very heady, it's very tedious, it's very particular. So you need to know that when you're in high school. Like that is what you're going to be doing, especially in litigation or whatever. It's not what you see on TV.
All right, so welcome to the You Are a Lawyer podcast. Sergio Gregorio. How are you today?
I'm good, Kyla. Thank you for having me.
So you and I connected in a really kind of serendipitous type way. I was at a podcast conference and I met your podcast producer or the owner of your podcast management company.
The owner of the studio, Brooklyn Podcasting Studio, Josh Wilcox. Yeah.
Yes.
Who mentored me in, I believe it was November and December of last year on
cool.
podcast.
Yeah, we love podcasters. We love podcast mentors as well, right? Because you need someone to walk with you and help you through the process. Yeah. So, Sergio, you're a lawyer. That's why you're on the show.
Yes, I am. It's hard to believe sometimes.
Yeah. All right. So let's do two things. First, let's talk about your podcast, the title of it, and what the mission of it is. And then we'll get into your career.
Okay. So my podcast is called Frolic and Detour. In the law, frolic and detour is when you kind of deviate from the course of conduct in an employment context and you're doing stuff you're not supposed to do. And then because of that, your employer is not responsible. So I kind of played with the language a little bit and I applied it to myself and my career because I believe that I deviated from the course of conduct, if you will, that I was supposed to engage in terms of my career. Like I've always really wanted to be on television. And initially I wanted to be a reporter or whatever. And I knew that going into law school, but I thought, well, let me just deviate from the course, go to law school, get a law degree, because that had been in me for some time. And then I'm going to pivot and go, full steam ahead into TV. And it just didn't work out that way.
Okay. So what were you doing before law school? Did you go straight after undergrad?
I did. So before law school, I was upstate New York, Syracuse University, and I studied English and broadcast journalism at Syracuse. So I certainly was aware that, I had the talent and the gift to do that work. But again, I convinced myself that, we need to do the JD and then get back on track.
Okay. So I got to pick some holes in this.
Okay.
No, so you were like 22, 23, deciding, never mind, I'm not going to do TV. That's so young.
21. Not so much that I wasn't going to do it, but that I wasn't going to do it right away. And I, looking back, I think it was just for all of us, especially back then, it was just the safest way because, both my parents are immigrants from Guatemala. And, and unlike a lot of immigrant stories, I wasn't told that I needed to go in one particular direction. No one said, you got to be a lawyer, you got to be a doctor. It was none of that. It was kind of like, do what you want. But I still think growing up in that kind of a setting, you do what's safest. And as crazy as and unpredictable as law school can be, it's still relatively safe.
So I love that perspective that your parents didn't push you towards anything and you still wanted the safest thing. And I say that because I have a 4-year-old and she comes down here and plays with all my podcasting stuff. And I'm like, I wonder if that's going to make her go the opposite. She's going to be like, my parents were so fanciful. So now I'm going to be a strict, whatever career.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. I don't think I ever thought about being a lawyer as being a safe decision. I can see what you're saying about go continue and get more schooling. Safest thing for me right now. And if you don't mind me asking, when did you go to law school? Was it like the 2008 academic crisis or?
Jeez, I know I look young, but no, I went to law school in 1998. So yeah, I graduated in 2001.
Okay.
So yeah, I graduated in 2001.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Right before 9/11. Yeah.
There was still stuff going on. All right, cool. And you're in New York. So yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. So law school, did you know any lawyers? Did someone in your undergrad mention law school? Like, where did that come from?
It's wow. So there was history. It didn't come out of nowhere. I was actually in a magnet program in high school for, kids who wanted to be lawyers. Basically, my first dream when I was really young was to drive a train, to be a New York City conductor, because I love trains. Then I still love trains now. That is just what I wanted to do. Honestly, I may still do that someday. And then one day I was walking around, Brooklyn is where I grew up with my sister. And she was like, why do you want to do that? They don't make a lot of money. You should be a lawyer. It literally started that way. there was nothing in me that suggested this is the way in which I should go, but I decided to follow that. And I was like, all right, I'll follow the money. And then so when it came time to apply for high school, I applied for this, magnet program, got in, and it was a program where many of the teachers were lawyers, and I was surrounded by classmates who wanted to be lawyers. So that's how that started. Yeah.
That's kind of cool though, right? So you're looking
Hmm.
up to these teachers and they're also lawyers and you're like, I want to be like that, right? I want a respectable thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of cute. That's
Absolutely.
wholesome.
Kind of cute.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
So parents are from Guatemala. Did you grow up in
Hmm.
Brooklyn or you eventually were there for like middle school, high school?
No, I grew up in Brooklyn. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, and the high school I went to was actually just a few blocks away, even though it was a magnet program that I was in. And it was literally half of it was in Brooklyn and half of it was in Queens because I was right by the border. But yeah, so grew up in Brooklyn.
Do you live in New York now?
No, I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland, outside of DC, and I've been in DC because I went to Howard Law School back in '98, and I've been here since, and literally in the same kind of within the same 3 mile radius. Haven't really moved. I actually like Silver Spring, Maryland. I do go back and forth to New York often. Many weekends, I do a lot of tapings there. But yeah, I've been here for I don't even know how to. What is that? 27 years? 20? I don't know.
Yeah, I asked that because I was a guest on the Frolic and Detour podcast, and I remember you were talking about being in New York, but now it's coming together. You were traveling up there to record
That's right.
with your production company.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I got it. Okay, so Sergio, what are you doing now when you're not recording your podcast? What is a
Ooh.
typical day like for you?
So I'm actually a federal employee, and part of my job is to write disability decisions. And I've been at it for about 15 years. I will say that obviously being a lawyer, even being a journalist or studying journalism, writing is always in a wheelhouse. I've always been a really good writer, and so and we analyze medical evidence. I've always enjoyed that kind of thing for whatever reason. I don't know what that is, but I've been doing it for 15 years, and I want to say that it was almost a dream job in the first 5 or 6 years because it just felt so me. It was like, oh, I get to kind of help people. I get to be persuasive. I get to, it's a relatively relaxed environment, but all of that is changed. And I don't mean in the last year or so or the last 6 months. I mean in the last 10 years or so. It's just been different. But that's how I spend my days mostly is doing that work. I'm fortunate enough to be able to work from home.
Do you tell people that you have a podcast?
It's weird. That's interesting. That's a good question because yeah, but it's kind of hard to keep under wraps. So it's not so much a secret. It's just not something I broadcast, so to speak. But people know. I mean, I've spoken to people at work, and they're like they're aware because it's on DC Radio, .gov on the HD channel, and then I'm putting out YouTube shorts, and now it's on YouTube. It's just kind of hard to miss, especially when you're putting in hashtags that are directed toward the very people that you work around. So yeah, but one of the things interesting, I had someone tell me a couple of months ago, well, a couple of people, they were like, you can't be a public person, and I don't think of myself as public, but I guess I'm becoming public, with a private profile. Like you can't pull back doing something that's inherently, I don't say glorious, but that you would share with the world. You can't keep that to yourself under wraps and do it. It's just inherently contradictory. You can't do it. And so, same thing with the LinkedIn. I struggled, and I've gone back and forth with the LinkedIn profile thing. Because at one point it was just lawyer, looking for legal jobs. And then again, a friend was like, do you think you're being a little disingenuous? Because that's the energy you're putting out in the world. Is that who you are today? And I was like, no, it's not. But I don't want to dismiss what I'm doing. He was like, that's okay, but you're moving forward, and you're on that track. So now it really is about. I mean, I guess you could figure out I'm a lawyer. You look at the degrees, but it's about what I'm putting out in the world. That's what the focus is on my LinkedIn. Everything I do, I try to make it all match, the energy. So
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing is like you want that authenticity to come through.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I believe in sharing 100% of 10%. Because my husband does not like social media, and I'll show us in Portland, Oregon for a whole week, and you might see him twice. because he does not like social media. But my maiden name is not Denanyo, so I am very much so married. I have my ring on all the time, but he does not like social media, right? And so, like, this is my YouTube corner. You see this. If I turn the camera, there's his desk and all his stuff, right? This is 100% of 10%. So I kind of get it, but I think that, like, if you looked at all my social media, you would still see my energy. It just really is, the energy is the same whether I'm talking about the podcast or lawyer or being a mom or being a business owner. You'll find your stride. But I do think that you don't have to, like, share everything to still be authentic and for people to be like, I still knew it was you.
That's good to know, because I'm very much I have personality. I realize that. I'm quirky. I'm different. I'm funny. But I'm also introverted. I'm introverted. I get my energy from either being alone or with being with one or two people. And I'm quite happy that way. I'm not Mr., at a party, jumping around from group to group. That's just not me. And so there's definitely a part of me that is a little uncomfortable with putting so much out in social media. It's just like, but it comes with the territory. You can't do this work and be like super duper closed off. I mean, you can have your life, like you said, be somewhat private, but I can't be in a box in a corner.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. But you'll find your stride. I think, especially if the person who told you make them fit is someone close to you or someone that really knows you. Take the criticism, but then just tweak a couple of things. But you definitely don't have to post everything. Like, even when I was on Twitter for years, I only talked about food and sports. And I was on Twitter for at least 8 years. And so, like, oh my God, there's Kyla. Or, like, here's some sports. Talk to us about it. But I only talked about those two things. And so,
interesting.
Fully present about a couple topics.
The people I admire in television, I'm old school, so like the 90s, even the 80s, like the talk shows, whatever. I just feel like, I think most of those people who are really big in television seem to be sharing everything. You know what I mean? And that's what authenticity meant back then. It was kind of like they knew about your personal life, they knew about where you vacation, they knew about, if you were abused when you were a kid, you know what I mean? And it's like, but I don't know. I guess authenticity, I don't know, it's changing maybe? Because maybe people overshare, or maybe you don't really have to share as much because you can just kind of find your niche and then just focus on that. I've had an intern for, I don't know, a couple of months maybe, who's helping a lot, which is great. And one of the things we decided to do in between kind of podcast episodes is to do food reviews, which I haven't released one yet. We did all the video for it, and I'm like, you know what, that seems to fit. We'll see, because I like to eat. It feels like me, so let me give it a shot. And it's certainly fun to do. So we'll see, because I want to kind of so people can see that side of me as well. Because I think that when you look at Frolic and Detour thus far, it's a little bit more serious. It's a little bit more muted. You know what I mean? So you don't really get to see the silly side.
Well, here's a little success story.
Yeah.
I was doing the podcast for about 2 years, and it started to get hard. And I was just like, all right, I don't know. And so I was like, okay, well, let's make YouTube videos, right? The way you run from one thing is to get into something else. Like, let's make YouTube videos. I do 3 YouTube videos about being a lawyer, and I ran out of content. I was like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. What do I do every day? I read books. So I started making book reviews. And then I was like, well, if I can make these, then I can record You Are a Lawyer. Because I had never recorded the video for a whole 2.5 years. I never did the video of these interviews. So now I have 3 years of book reviews on YouTube. Now I have You Are a Lawyer, the podcast and the video. And now authors send me their books to be like, hey, will you review this book for me? And I'm like, I didn't even expect this part of it. So you never know what could happen. And they could probably care less than I'm a lawyer. They're like, I don't care. You do book reviews. Right. And here's my book. So if you're a visionary person, be like, wow, somebody's going to send me a set of La Crusette because I have food reviews up. Like, you have no idea. You have no idea.
Right.
Do it all. That's what I'm saying. Do it all. Okay.
Yes.
So if you're listening to this and you're like, what the heck are these lawyers talking about? This podcast is about humanizing lawyers because we're so much more than our career. And so if while you're listening, you're like, oh, lawyers do eat food. Yes, we do. Lawyers do read books. Yes, we do. Lawyers do have podcasts because, like, we do. Right. We're multifaceted. Yeah. So, Sergio, what would you say to a young lawyer about what they could do with their law degree?
Oh, wow. If you're already a young lawyer and you haven't really decided what you want to do, I mean, I would sit down and figure out what and it is cliche, but what you're most passionate about. Because even if I had done that with my law degree in the very beginning, like when I first came out of law school, I would have discovered that I love helping people because I love helping people. So for me, a more ideal start to my legal career would have been at like legal aid. I actually would have loved that because I get to work with the communities that I enjoy working with. And it wouldn't have felt like, I mean, of course it's lawyering, but it's a lot of like social work, which I have prior to, working at the agency I'm at, I was a guardian in the DC court system where I assisted incapacitated adults, people who didn't have a voice for themselves. And what I would do is I'd visit like nursing homes and hospitals and help, these patients with like Medicaid and all sorts of things, food stamps. And I would go to the courts and I would, just kind of apprise them of what was going on and the status of it. But I enjoyed all of that because I got to meet and help real people. So I would say figure out what you really love and where you feel your value is. I really would just start there. And then I would start to look at options. I know a lot of people, I've got people in my family, who it's all about like big law and making money. And that's a very practical start, certainly if you have to pay off loans. So I wouldn't, that's fine, but you have to, especially if you don't see yourself doing that forever, you kind of have to figure out where you're going to go from there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's pivot. What would you say to a young person, high school, maybe even middle school, about going to law school? If you were mentoring them right now and they were asking you, what would you say to them?
Oh, wow. I would say to them to figure out why you want to be a lawyer and to spend real time with lawyers trying to figure out what lawyers do and what you see yourself doing as a lawyer. Which is interesting because I actually did have legal internships in high school. But again, I'd already decided I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? When you're doing an internship in high school, now I realize this as, you're a high school student, you can't do anything in a law office. So all I did was, deliver mail. They would invite me to the snack hour. And I'd be like, this is cool. They're drinking beer. I can't drink beer. They're having snacks, so I had and I remember once saying that to like an associate. This was like a middle-sized firm in New York. And I was like, well, can I do something more substantive? And he was like, yeah, you can digest this deposition. And so he gave me, yeah, right. Well, now I know I wasn't really doing much. They were just like keeping busy. So they gave me, a deposition. They were like, you just have to summarize. And I was summarizing and they were like, yeah, you could tweak it this way. But looking back, they didn't use that. They didn't use that. And so the thing is, they bet they should have used it. And the reason they didn't is because the work that lawyers do, particularly in litigation, is very heady. It's very tedious. It's very particular. So you need to know that when you're in high school. Like that is what you're going to be doing, especially in litigation or whatever. It's not a matter of, it's not what you see on TV. I mean, the glamour, the cross-examination, it's deeper than that. So I would say really understand what lawyering is and then decide.
It's deeper than that. And also there's different practice groups. I didn't realize that. TV shows you litigation, which is going to court, depositions, cross-examinations, and researching the people. I worked in IP law. I was purchasing evidence from online retailers to see if they were counterfeit. I was having a ball. No one told me that could have been my job as a lawyer. I was loving it every single day. If you ask me, do you want to work in intellectual property? What is that? I had no idea. Oh, do I want to track down and research counterfeiters? Yes. Right? And so there's different practice groups as well. So if you've made the decision early, just like Sergio did, this is what I want, this is what I want, consider that there are 100 different practice areas. This show is not about lawyering is terrible and don't do it. It's about like, there's so much more That's what we're saying in this episode. There's so much more.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, cool. So everyone, if you're watching on YouTube, I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time and your attention. And if you're listening, thank you for listening to the podcast, and feel free to share it with somebody else. All right, Sergio, you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Kyla. It was great.
Yes, it was fun.